A few months ago, we took a look at the NanoScout by Emax, a capable 65mm drone designed specifically for racing. Now they're back again with a newer version, but this time in HD. So let's open this up and see how it looks. Okay, so here it is, the NanoScout HD. And the first thing here is this nice little carry case right here. And props to Emax for actually including this with their drone, because some of the other manufacturers just put this stuff in a box and it's up to you to actually protect your drone. So pretty nice touch here by Emax. So let's open this up and see what's inside. All right, and first thing we see here is the drone itself. And then to the right here, we have a battery charger, pretty cool. And this has the new EM 2.0 connectors on here, and you can charge 6 batteries simultaneously. We talk about this a little bit later. Now on top here, you have like a tool kit with a screwdriver. It looks like a repair kit with some extra parts in here. And we've seen this before on their Tiny Hawk series as well. Now on the top here, you have a pouch with a whole bunch of parts and accessories. And the first thing here is some spare propellers, as well as some extra connectors here. These are the EM 2.0 connectors. And we've talked about this before on their previous drone, especially the original NanoScout. And this is a pretty cool connector to convert your other drones, or maybe to convert some of your batteries as well for this drone. Besides that, we have some stickers, some warning cards, and looks like a ELRS binding compatibility, as well as some other precautions here for this drone. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the NanoScout HD, and this thing looks almost identical to the original version that I have right here. In fact, it'd be really confusing actually to tell the difference. Now the only difference here is obviously the camera on here. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Kind of similar weight as well. In fact, let's just weigh the two and see if there's a difference in weight here. All right, and here's the original NanoScout, 23 grams. All right, and let's try the HD version. And 23 grams, guys. So the actual same weight as the original. That is crazy, guys. Typically when you go from an analog system to a digital, there's usually an increase in weight. And the big thing here, the reason why this is happening is because the all-in-one board here from HDzero. Now this is a 5-in-1 board, and this is the special sauce of this entire drone here. We're talking about a flight controller, ESC, a BSC, receiver, and a VTX. Yeah, VTX. Kind of like unheard of. Usually you see a 3-in-1 or 4-in-1. Now that's pretty cool because that means there won't be any weight penalty or a sacrifice in performance, because the honest truth is the majority of this drone here is very similar to the original right here. Now having said that, let's talk more specifically about the 5-in-1 here. Now the flight controller here is an F4 flight controller similar to the one on here, with a 5-amp ESC, 6 amps peak if they have a burst or a full throttle. And that's pretty much the standard in the industry. So that's some part of what we need for a drone of this size. That leads us to the VTX on this board, which is pretty much the pretty cool thing about this one here. We've seen 4-in-1s with analog VTX. This is one of, or maybe the only board or 5-in-1 with digital or HDzero VTX built into it. Now this is the typical VTX by HDzero, digital obviously, and it is power adjustable from 25 to 200 milliwatts. That's gonna give you a really smooth image, low latency, and most importantly, a more consistent latency. Something that we can all appreciate when we're racing or doing some proximity flying. Last but not least, let's talk about the actual receiver on the board. Now this one here is an Express LRS receiver. We know that's the standard in the industry. That's gonna give you some really high refresh rates and low latency, something we also can appreciate when racing. Now one thing about the Express LRS on this drone is that it is an SPI based receiver, meaning if you wanna do any updates or firmware updates to this receiver, you'll have to update the actual flight controller altogether in Betaflight. It's not the most ideal thing, but it still does work. Now connected to the VTX is the camera, and Emax have gone with the HDzero Eco camera, one of the lightest cameras that they actually offer for the HDzero system. Now this one has a 4:3 aspect ratio, give you a bigger vertical field of view, which is something that we can use while we're actually racing. Now besides that, they've redesigned the actual mount here to introduce less vibration going to the camera, and this one here is adjustable depending on the speed of your track. Now besides that, the frame is somewhat identical to the one on the original drone, but Emax said that this one here is a little bit more durable, it's stronger, and actually produces less vibration, so you have a smoother image in your camera. So we'll see about that today and see how smooth the image is. Now the motor prop combo on the HD version is identical to the one on the analog. We're talking about an 801.5 motor, 22,000 kV, and as I said before in the previous review of the original version, it's not the highest kV value, but it strikes a balance between performance and efficiency, and we'll see how long this one here lasts on these batteries. Now the interesting thing about this one here is that they've gone with some motor plugs, and it's a little bit different than the original version where the original was on top, yet the plugs are underneath. I'm sure that's a design based upon the actual flight controller board. Now I'm sure they probably could have saved a little bit more weight just by soldering these motor wires to the actual board and save maybe 1 or 2 grams. But Emax said this one here is designed specifically for racing, for durability, and if you do have a failed or damaged motor, this version here with the plugs makes it a lot easier to repair your drone during a race. And I do agree with that mentality and philosophy. Now let's talk about some of the wires and antennas on the drone. The first one here is this little brass or copper wire here. This one here is for the Express LRS receiver. It is pretty short here, so it is protected by the actual canopy on here, but it is cool to see that we do have an external antenna here for the Express LRS receiver, which has natively good range to begin with. The next one here is this nice little antenna right here. It's very short. It does stick out a little bit further than the ELRS antenna. This one here is for the VTX. It is connected via a UFL connector, and it's pretty cool to see that they have some kind of glue in here to actually prevent this thing from popping off during a flight or a crash. And you don't want that to happen because that could actually damage the VTX. Last but not least, we have the actual pigtail here for the battery release, and this one here has the EM 2.0 connector. Now this is Emax's new connector here for their EM 2.0 batteries. Now these are a lot better or superior to the PH 2.0 that we've used in the past. This is going to lead to less battery sag overall. So I've used one before in the past and it has generated pretty good results on this original drone here. So I'm kind of psyched to see how this one here performs. Now having said that, Emax said you can get around 4 minutes of flight time. We'll see about that. I don't know if that's going to be true or not. We'll see if that works out. But typically or historically, these HDzero VTX are a little bit power hungry, and we'll see if that affects the flight time of this drone overall. So having said, let's put a battery in here, bind this to my radio, and see how this image here looks. Okay, so we have our NanoScout HD right here, and the first thing I want to do is see the image quality from this camera and VTX setup right here. Now I have my HDzero goggles right here, but for right now on the bench, I'll be using my HDzero monitor right here. Now this is actually a goggles here by Emax. This is the Transporter 2 HD. It's a very capable, maybe like a beginner focus kind of goggles here, and it actually converts and transforms into a monitor. So I'll just put this on, power this on. All right, and that's your typical kind of scanning mode right here. So let's power this on and see if it finds the correct channel on this and see how it looks. Oh, it found something, and there it is. There's the image, a little scratchy here. And here's the image here, 4:3. You can see it, the ducks kind of in view here, which is not bad. All right, not too bad. What do you guys think about the image? We have studio light in here, but here's your eco camera. Not too shabby. I like it. Let's stop this recording. All right, so the image looks pretty good on this eco camera here. I'm gonna go to the computer here, show you guys how to just put a binding phrase, or if you wanna hit the bind button on this one here, we can do that on the computer as well. So let's go to the computer, show you how to do that, and get this thing in the air. Okay, so we have the computer, we have our NanoScout HD right here. I'm just gonna plug it into the computer. All right, we can hear the tones. And let's go to Betaflight that I have right here. We can see that it's actually identified. We can just connect to it. And then what you're gonna do is go straight down here to the receiver tab, boom. And here you are, receiver. It already identifies it as an SPI receiver. Now, if you just wanna bind this to a regular traditional radio, you can put your radio into bind phase, and then here you have the bind button right here. Bind receiver, it puts the receiver here into the bind mode. What I'm really interested in here, right, is this Express LRS and binding phrase. So once you have this phrase in here, it's gonna match your radio and it should bind automatically. So let's see if that works. I'm gonna put my phrase in here and then save it. All right, let's see, save and reboot. I'm gonna power on my drone here, my radio. Nothing yet, nothing yet, nothing yet, nothing yet, nothing yet. Nope, there it is. I have telemetry. So that bind phrase is as easy as that, and we are good to go. And this drone here is ready to go, guys. It's ready to fly. This time I'm gonna fly with my HDzero goggles. Let's start recording here. Let's see this flies. Ooh, almost hit my hand there. This is an old battery. I don't know how far I can get with it. Man, this image is sick, guys. Image is sick. The doggies. As you guys can see, no breakup, 200 milliwatts. Go over here. Doggies watching. Can I go under this chair? It made it. It's fast. I'm not even pushing it. It is fun. Can I get through here? Yeah, I can get through there. Can I get through here? I can get through there. Oh man, HDzero. This thing feels amazing. Yo, this thing is fast. Oops, 3.2. Let's see if it rebounds back to, all right, there's my statistics right there. Min battery 3.2. I'm surprised I didn't see a warning. And now the current battery volt is 3.5. So there you go. You can run these things pretty low in flight, 3.2. Total arm was 2.5 minutes. This was a used low battery. That was fun. Okay, it says the VTX is hot. Let's power down the VTX. That was cool, guys. Let's go outside, fire some more, and then I'll let you know my final impressions on the NanoScout HD. Okay, so we're back from our flight test, and the NanoScout HD did a pretty good job, guys. Now, I don't know if it's because of this HDzero camera on here, but I was flying this drone here significantly faster, more aggressive compared to the analog version right here. So this thing here is confidence inspiring. And because of that, this thing, I did get to test the limitations of it. Now, this is a really good fly, no different than the analog version, but I really get to stretch the legs of this one here, and it flies really well, guys. As you can see, I'm flying through gaps, flying really fast, doing some power loops and some rolls, and it does a really good job. This thing doesn't freak out. And as I said before, I don't know if it's the camera or just the tune on here, but it gives you the confidence to try things that you wouldn't normally do with other whoops, whether it be analog whoops, tiny whoops, or even some small like 2-inch drones. It could be the whole recipe, and we'll talk about the durability about this later, but it just gives you the confidence to try things, and that really increases the fun factor and gives you the confidence knowing that this thing here is gonna stand up. But overall, this thing flew really good. Now, as far as the power on this drone here, the motor and prop combination is no different than the one on this drone here, and these two drones weigh the same, so this shouldn't be much of a thrust to weight ratio difference on here. But at first, it does feel a little bit underpowered, but you do have enough throttle here to do some really good maneuvers, and as you can see, this thing flies really fast, so you do have enough thrust to fly this thing at a fast speed. So this would actually be a decent racer, and this was mostly done outdoors, so even indoors with less wind, this should be a really good ripper on here. Now, I did do some acro maneuvers, and I did have to use 100% throttle on the recovery from a power loop. And even sometimes, even while doing that, I will still sometimes touch the ground. So in certain aspects, give yourself a lot of altitude for those maneuvers. But overall, guys, the flight characteristics on the NanoScout HD, it is good. I don't remember it being this much fun on the analog version. It's the same drone. So it could be a little bit about the placebo effect of being able to see actually where you're going and giving you that confidence, and therefore, this is a good drone overall to fly. Now, having said that, I did fly this drone here with 3 separate batteries. I did fly with the recommended 320 milliamp hour 1S battery. This is the one that's recommended by Emax. It actually is an Emax branded battery with the EM 2.0 connector. And these connectors are pretty good, guys. No issues, no sag. Even with the full throttle, it holds up pretty well. Now, Emax says with this 320 milliamp hour, you can get around 4 minutes of flight time, but with my testing, I got around 3 minutes of flight time, so a minute less. Now, as I said before, I was flying this drone here pretty aggressively, and don't forget this thing does have the HDzero VTX on here, and I was flying this at the max power of 200 milliwatts, so that will consume some power. Now, I don't know how they got their statistics, maybe using a lower power output, and maybe flying a little bit less aggressive, but 3 minutes isn't bad, especially for a 1S battery, seeing that this one here is also digital. Now, I also flew it with the 300 as well as a smaller 270, and to me, the 300 seems to be the best balance of both. It's a little bit lighter, and you still get around maybe 2.5 minutes of flight time, so I do like this battery a lot. Now, the actual 270 is the lightest. You do get the most maneuverability out of this one. I did use this battery to mostly do some acro maneuvers and some spirited flying, and it did work really well. Flight times on this isn't that great though, around 2 minutes, and sometimes under 2 minutes, around 1.5 to 1 hour, so 1 hour, but no, around 1 minute and 45 to 1 minute and 50 seconds of flight time. But I do think the 300 milliamp hour is the best of the bunch. And the 320 isn't bad, especially if you're just doing some cruising around your house. Not bad at all. Now, talking about the VTX on here, let's talk about the HDzero digital system on this drone. And this is the highlight of this drone. This one here is digital with this all-in-one board. And this thing did a really good job, guys. The resolution of this is significantly better than the one on the analog drone. I actually flew this drone first before I actually took this one for the first flight. You didn't see that video because I didn't include it in the video, but I did want to see or get familiar or re-familiar with this drone here in the analog form and see if there was a significant difference or see if it was worth to upgrade to the actual HDzero version. And guys, as you saw, I had a lot more fun. I was flying this drone a lot faster, and the resolution does make a big difference. Now, this is not at the resolution of, say, a walk snail or a DJI. Far from that, but it's a big improvement over the analog version. I do like this eco camera on here. This thing is pretty good. It is a native 4x3 sensor, and I did appreciate that because now I can have a bigger vertical field of view. I'm not a really aggressive flyer, So even at this angle right here, there are some ducks in view. That's not a deal breaker. This is a kind of a tiny whoop, 65mm racing whoop. So it's pretty natural to see ducks in view. But it is a 4x3 sensor and it's really, really good, guys. Now, one thing about the camera I have to mention is that I did get some vibration in here. Now, initially it started off very well, especially if you're flying indoors. I don't know if that has to do with the shutter speed of the camera. Obviously, if you have more light, the shutter speed goes up. But indoors, really no kind of vibration in there. Really good image overall. But going outside, there were some vibrations in there, especially after a few of my crashes. And we'll talk about the durability about this drone here a little bit later. But I did change my propellers on this drone a few times to get a better image. And the image was a little bit smoother, but there still was some vibration in the camera overall. But overall, this is a pretty nice setup. This eco camera is really nice, clear, vibrant. And obviously you can change the actual saturation and contrast in this in the HDzero camera settings. Now this is a typical HDzero system on here, so the range and penetration is very similar to any kind of HDzero transmitter on the market. It works pretty well. It does have an aggressive fall off, meaning you have really good signal. And if you go behind some kind of an obstacle, any kind of dense obstacle, maybe even trees or a building or wall, you do get the analog-like or type of breakup, but it drops off pretty fast. So be ready to either punch out or turn around and come back. But I had really good reception with this smaller antenna on here. But overall, this seems to be a perfect match for a drone of this size. And to be honest with you guys, while I was flying this and reviewing this drone, I was kind of surprised that it's weird to see that other manufacturers haven't jumped on and kind of adopted HDzero, especially with this all-in-one board. Now, yes, HDzero has made some VTX in the past, and that's additional weight, but you have a board here that has everything in here, flight control, ESC, and the actual VTX. So I'm surprised other manufacturers haven't jumped on board, but this is a killer deal right here. This package is really good and kind of perfect for a drone this size. So props to Emax for thinking about this and adopting this into their NanoScout line. Now, talking about this all-in-one board here, let's talk about the RX reception on this drone. This obviously has a built-in Express LRS receiver in it. Obviously, it's a 501 board. And this thing behaves just like any other Express LRS receiver on the market. Really good range. This antenna here did a really good job. As you can see, it's a little bit more exposed right now. It's hard to see. I don't think it's gonna get damaged, but I do a pre-flight on my drones before I take it off and make sure that there's no like broken antennas. But we got really good range on this. Never once did I have a fail-safe, and never once did I question the ability of this Express LRS receiver. Now, I was flying at around 200 milliwatts, and no big deal at all. I flew this thing over water, and never once did it have a fail-safe. Now, I still do have a concern. I have to bring it up again. This is an SPI-based receiver, and although we don't really update the firmware on our receivers very often, unless there's a major revision, you will have to update the actual flight control as well to get that done. Maybe in another version of this 5-in-1 board, they can make it a serial receiver. That would make this thing just ideal and perfect. But for right now, it works really well, guys. No issue at all, and it has good range, really good response, and yeah, pretty good match for a drone of this size. All right, last but not least, let's talk about the durability of the NanoScout HD. And this is a fun topic for me because I rarely cover durabilities of drones. I'm testing these drones and I try my best not to crash it. But the nature of this drone being so fun, so small, so peppy and light, and then you have an HDzero in here, it does give you the confidence to try things you wouldn't normally do on other drones. And I crashed the heck out of this drone, multiple times. And this thing still looks like a brand new drone. There are no cracks on these ducts. These ducts are very, very durable. Now, the only issue here is that I do have some nicks on my propellers. In particular, this front right propeller right here. I've changed this one probably twice already. Yeah, twice. This is the third propeller on here. And as you can see on this one here, there are some nicks on the propellers as well. So this one, I don't know why it takes the brunt of the crashes. Maybe because you're moving forward, maybe because the drone crashes this way first. But some of my other propellers on here have held up pretty well. So I think Emax did a really good job with the durability of this drone. This is probably the drone I've crashed the most ever testing all my drones on this channel. And it has held up very, very well, guys. I don't see how you could break this. And you know, after you crash this drone maybe once, twice, 3 times, and you see there's no real damage to it, it kind of makes you want to even take more risks while flying this drone. So it does add to the fun factor while flying the NanoScout HD. So overall, what do I think about the NanoScout HD? Well, I like this drone actually even more. This one flew very well as the analog version, and this kind of reinvigorated my passion for these smaller whoops, especially with this HDzero system. As I said before, it's a really nice package. It weighs the exact same as the analog version, so there really isn't any compromise in that department. You have a 5-in-1 board right here. You have HDzero, and it has really good range thanks to the HDzero system as well as the Express LRS receiver on this. So I think this is a pretty much a home run for Emax. If you're slightly interested in tiny whoops, we have a whoop season coming in here pretty soon in the next couple of months. If you do some racing, this could be a good option for you. Now, if you're interested in this drone, but you don't own any HDzero goggles, well, I have a solution here for you. This is the Transporter 2. This is a beginner focus goggles, very affordable, and it actually transforms into a field monitor. So you can give this to one of your friends or buddies while you're flying, and this is a really good complement to this drone. I've done a full review on this one, and I'll leave it linked above right here so you can take a look at it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.